So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. The weather is a typical April day here in upstate New York. Cold, snowy, blustery.
Every time I looked out the window, there was another inch of snow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Although I think it's better now. So thank you all for being here tonight. And so we're going to talk about the murder of Selena. Does anybody remember when this happened? Raise your hand if you remember this, know anything about it, remember when it happened? Okay. There's a reason that I decided to talk about this one, because I was actually going to talk about something completely different, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm going to talk about her history, get up to her, talk about her musical career, her family, and then we're going to talk about her murder, and who committed it, and why it was committed, and where everybody is in this story right now. Oops, how do I go to the next screen? How do I go to the next screen?
Cold necks. Just do the arrow.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to do that.
Oh,
Okay,
well.
there we go. Okay, so this is Selena. It's called the early years here. One of the most interesting things that I found out about Selena is that the OBGYN who delivered her was future Congressman and presidential candidate Ron Paul.
What?
Which is crazy. I was like, wow, this story. It's like when we talk about these things, we're gonna do this, and then we get into it. It's like, oh my gosh, there's all these other parts. I had never heard that before. I don't remember anybody mentioning that. Of course, they wouldn't talk about that when she was murdered. Yeah. It just is like a kind of a funny footnote in the story. So she was the youngest of 3 children. She has an older brother who goes by A.B. and her sister Suzette, and she was the youngest of 3. And the late 70s, early 80s in Texas were a little bit challenging just because of oil busts and booms, and her parents started a Mexican restaurant, which ended up closing, and then they had to declare bankruptcy. And then the whole family moved in with her father, Abraham's brother. And this sort of was the spark that got this musical group started called Selena y los Niños, which is like Selena and the Guys, or the Boys, or something like that. So this is their first album, Selena y los Niños. This came out in 1984-ish. But her father, Abraham, was a musician in the 50s and 60s in Texas, and he and his group had a couple hits. They produced some records. They were big in the Mexican music scene, Texas scene. So Abraham was in this band. He joined the Air Force in the early 1960s, gets stationed in Washington State, leaves the band, obviously, while he's in the Air Force, meets his wife, Marcella, somewhere in Washington. And right after he gets discharged, he served like 2 years in the Air Force. After he gets discharged, they have their oldest son, or their first son and oldest son. And then they come back to Texas. He starts playing around with the band again, but then Suzette is born, and then he's, okay, now we've got these 2 young kids, I've got a family, I'm going to leave the band. And the band ended up just formally disbanding in the mid-1970s. And so by the time they formally disband, Selena is also a part of Abraham's band. So we had a keen eye for music, and I want to say, was maybe a little bit controlling, and was like, we're going to form a band. A.B., you're playing the guitar. Suzette, you're playing the drums. And she was like, I don't want to play the drums. And he's, I don't care, you're the drummer.
Yeah.
And Selena had a wonderful voice. If you've ever heard her music, she's a fantastic singer. And he was like, she's going to be the lead singer. So
How old was she? When
she was young.
Yeah,
She
I
was
thought
like, so they actually sang at the Mexican restaurant. So she would have been like 8 or 9, 10 maybe. And part of why I think they were really pushing the music aspect is this was the family's business. Yeah. This was what they were doing. And Selena ended up dropping out of dropping out of middle school. She left school in 8th grade. And it was a real issue with the school that she was attending in Texas, because at the time she dropped out, she was only attending school like Tuesday through Thursday, because Friday and then the weekends and Monday, they were traveling all over. The band is playing at weddings, parties, quinceañeras, they're just all over the state. And then she started missing Thursdays too. So really in 1 week of school, she was only there Tuesday and Wednesday. And the teachers and the staff at the school were going to reach out to the Texas Board of Education and be like, hey, this student is not even, and even when she's here, she's exhausted because they're doing all this recording and traveling and singing. And I started watching this Neflix series. There's like a 10-episode series about her. I only got through episode 2, so I thought it was a 2-episode series, and then it was
I can see your eyes.
wait, this is ending in like 1987.
God.
Where is the rest of the story? They had this scene where the teacher is like talking to the parents, and the dad is just like, she's dropping out. I'm taking her right now. You don't get to tell me what she does. And that was it. And the mom is there and just really doesn't have anything.
So is this like a drama?
It would, yeah, it's a drama.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and it really covers, the first 2 episodes really cover a lot of their early life.
okay.
So, yeah, I feel like I know more about that probably.
Was this like a recent one?
I want to say it was in the 2020s, maybe
Oh,
2010s. Yeah, it's like a 10-episode series. So I thought there's another one that I thought just came out about her.
Okay.
And there's one that came out about her murderer, too, which we're going to talk a little bit about as well. So anyways, they're producing these albums. They're getting more well-known. And then Chris Perez joins the band. So he was a musician in the San Antonio, Corpus Christi area in Texas. He was well-known as well. Selena's brother invites him to join the band. And immediately there's a little bit of a relationship beginning between Selena and Chris. And this is one thing I read that I didn't like. So her older sister, Suzette, finds out that these two are hanging around
Flirting?
together, flirting, maybe a little kissing, something like that. And she immediately goes tells the father. And the father's like, you're gone. Kicks him right out of the band and forbids her from seeing him, which, of course, means she wants to see him even more. They ended up eloping. They went to Mexico to get married.
Wow.
And
She's super young then?
yeah, she had to be, so they eloped in 1992, she was born in 71, so she would have been 21. So they probably met around the time she was like 19, 20. I believe she was still living with her parents because the story I read said that she climbed out of her parents' house, out of the bedroom window, to run off with him to Mexico.
Yeah.
So then they get married and it's okay, nobody's going to know. She's already a big star. There's radio stations like in that part of Texas and in Mexico, and like, hey, did you hear this rumor? Like, Selena and Chris Perez get married, and then the family finds out, and the father is so upset. I actually think he left like the house, like he just was beyond disappointed, angry, frustrated because first of all he said you're not supposed to see him, and she did, and not only did she see him, she got married to him. And he was also worried that her dad was worried that Chris Perez was going to make her quit singing.
Oh.
That maybe Chris Perez might be a little bit like her dad and be controlling. And her dad was worried because again, she is what is making the money for the family. In this band. But they were married right up until the time of her death, and he's still active in the music scene. He still produces albums and makes music. And so really, in like around the time that she gets married to Chris Perez, there we go. She's just breaking through. She's really becoming known in the Tejano Tex-Mex music scene, but also like she's breaking through to other parts of music, American music and pop music, and she is Tejano music, which I don't really know a whole lot about it, but it's very male dominated. And so she comes along and she's just like this superstar. And she wins Female Vocalist of the Year, like every year she's singing. There's really not a year she doesn't win that award. She wins a Grammy Award in 1994 for Best Mexican American Music Award, or Music Album. And it was an album called Live, and it was some live music that she performed, I want to say at Houston, the Astrodome. And she was in a Mexican telenovela with Eric Estrada from Chips. Maybe anybody remember the TV show Chips?
I remember the show, but I couldn't tell you.
So she was starting to break into acting too, and she was also a spokesperson for Coca-Cola just in Texas.
Wow.
So she did like promotional videos to keep kids in school, which is funny because she didn't do that. But anyway,
she probably wanted to though.
I think she did. I think she really. When you think about these kids who are really young, parents are like, you're going to be a singer, and we're going tonight, and you're going to perform until 1 a.m. or whatever.
You just want to be a normal kid.
You want to be a normal kid. You want to go to school. You want to hang out with your friends. And it didn't seem like she really had that in her life. Although she seemed really happy being a singer, too. So I think she really loved what she did. Okay. She was actually a pretty astute business person. We're going to talk a little bit about her business ventures, too. In 1992, a woman named Yolanda Saldivar enters her life and enters the picture. And she's from Texas. She's a big music fan. She was a registered nurse. She was like a nurse that would go and work in people's homes, like and take care of people that were living in their homes or whatever. She was a big fan of the Tejano music singer Shelly Lares and wanted to fan club for her, but Shelly's father was getting weird vibes from this person and didn't want anything to do with her. And in a strange coincidence, Selena's husband was actually in Shelley Lars's band before she joined.
Oh, okay.
So this music scene was like,
I don't want to say incestuous, but
yeah, they all knew each
Yeah,
other,
yeah.
and they're playing similar types of music. So she comes into the picture in 1992. And she really becomes a good friend of Selena. She reaches out to Selena's father, and wants to start a Selena fan club. And Abraham's, that's a great idea. First of all, we're going to charge money. We're going to rake some money off this. We're going to engage with fans. That's a wonderful idea. And you should totally be the president, and you should control the funds. And she also becomes very close with Selena. They were very close. We're going to talk a little bit about their relationship. And Selena had always been like interested in fashion and jewelry and beauty. And she opens up 2 boutiques, which also had a beauty salon in them. Huh. And she designed her own dresses, things like that. And she opens one in San Antonio and one in Corpus Christi. And Yolanda manages those. And the family has full confidence in Yolanda and is glad that she's doing that. So,
what a great gig for Yolanda for just reaching out, and now she's president of the fan club.
Yeah, and she's best friends with this famous singer, and the family totally trusts her.
She's managing 2 businesses.
She's managing these businesses, and she's a nurse. She doesn't come with any experience in like management or fan clubs or anything like that. Although the fact that she wanted to start a fan club for somebody else makes me think like that was something that was a passion for her. Like she just loved these things and wanted to be a part of their lives in some way. And
Would you say it's more of an obsession?
so we're going to get, that's a good word because we're going to get to that in one of the next slides. So around 1994, there's some things that start bubbling up, right? There are some Quintanilla family members who are working at one of these boutiques and are getting back to Abraham and his wife and the brother and sister that there are issues with the way Yolanda runs these businesses. She's not accounting for all the transactions. She's treating people really badly. She's just not a great manager. And they're also hearing from people who signed up, and they're sending in $30 or whatever to join this fan club, and they never get anything. No, they never get anything. They're supposed to get like some merchandise.
Yeah.
And like a
We all remember fan clubs from
Sure,
the 80s and 90s.
It was like, hey, I'm going to get something from...
I was in the X-Files fan club.
Were you?
Yeah. Got my X-Files magazine.
Yeah,
I got the
yeah.
sticker decal that went in my window,
There you
my
go.
bedroom window.
Yeah. So imagine joining that and then never hearing anything. You're like, where did my $25 go?
Yeah.
And so they start hearing that. And eventually it turns out that between the fan club and the boutiques, there's about $60,000 missing. Which I forgot to put on here, but that's about $125,000 in today's dollars. It's even in the 1990s, $60,000 was a lot of money.
So what was the rest of the family doing during this time? Selena's the big star.
They're all in the band.
Oh,
Yep.
so they're still like, they're performing like the
yes.
background
So
music?
she's doing, so she's putting out solo albums, but they're also doing albums together.
Oh,
too.
okay.
And the family has their own production company called Q Productions, and they're producing albums for them and for other
Oh, wow, okay,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
So
this is the business. I
This
didn't
is-
know if they were all like riding on Selena's coattails.
music is the business.
Okay.
Music is their family business. So in early March 1995, the family, the husband, so Abraham, Suzette, the sister, AB, Chris Perez, and Selena confront her about this missing money. And they end up banning Yolanda from seeing Selena, which is really like the worst thing that could happen to her.
So she
because
fired or no, not yet?
She's not fired yet.
Okay.
She's just banned from seeing Selena, and they tell her, we need to see all of these bank records. And shortly after this meeting where she's banned from seeing Selena, she decides to purchase a gun. So she gets a .38 caliber handgun. So the relationship between Selena and Yolanda is complicated. Selena is very hesitant to believe what they're saying about Yolanda. It's like, she's my friend. She would never do this to me. And Yolanda has been described, or was described by other people, as being completely obsessed with Selena. Like, just completely obsessed. Would do anything to make her happy. Do anything for her. I think Selena's father thought maybe there was a little bit of infatuation. Like, Yolanda really loved Selena. And I don't know. So Selena finally confronts her about these missing bank records. And that's when they decide to meet. Selena agrees to meet Yolanda at a Days Inn in Corpus Christi. So she goes to...
Why does it have to be the Days Inn?
So it's interesting. So Yolanda is all over the place.
Is she living there?
She's not living there, but she continually tries. So this is a little bit complicated, and I wasn't sure exactly how to describe this in this, because I'm not even sure I understand this. But so Selena's father believes that prior to this incident at the Days Inn in Corpus Christi, there were 3 other times where Yolanda reached out to Selena to meet with her, where he felt like she was going to kill Selena. Looking back, it was like, and I had never heard that before. Mm-hmm. And I was telling Jenny, I'm just going to do a little sidetrack here. For Christmas, Santa left me a True Crime a Day calendar in my stocking. And it's one of those ones where you, every day, yeah. And last week, it was all about Selena. And I learned all these things that I had never heard about. There were 3 other times where Yolanda wanted to meet her in like a public parking lot or a hotel. And the first time they met, this was like March 12th, Yolanda shows Selena the gun. And Selena's like, you got to get rid of that gun.
Okay, so they've met before.
They met that time.
Selena, I understand that didn't think anything was going to happen because they met
before. No, it was
before.
just like, you got to get rid of that gun. Why do you have that? You don't need that gun. Get rid of it. And she does. So she takes the gun back. Yolanda takes the gun back to where she bought it and returns it.
Oh.
And then continues to be pressed by the family for these bank records. So guess what she does?
Buys it back.
She goes back and buys the gun again. So now she has it again. And they just have a couple other meetings where I think Selena was supposed to come by herself to meet with Yolanda, but she came with her husband. And so they were like, okay, she obviously didn't go through with it because Chris was there. Yeah. That was good luck for Selena at that time. So anyways, so Selena had been traveling. I think she was in Mexico. She comes back into the States. Yolanda gets to Corpus Christi, checks into the Days Inn, and calls Selena. Can you come over and meet me? And Selena's like, yes, okay. I'll be there the next day. I'll be there. It was a Tuesday. So she leaves her house at 7:30 in the morning and is driving to the Days Inn. So she gets there, and her dad calls her and says, hey, don't forget, you have this recording at 10 a.m.
Oh.
And she's like, yeah, I just got to take care of this one last thing, and then I'll be there. The people in the hotel hear arguing in this room. And Selena, they're yelling back and forth, and Selena needed to get the bank records from her. I think at that point she was just like, we're done. This is going to be it. And Yolanda's hemming and hawing. Selena grabs Yolanda's bag, dumps it out, finds the bank records, and the gun comes out too. And then Yolanda gets the gun, and Selena takes off for the door and is shot in the back as she's leaving the room. She's shot like in the back here, and it exits out the front.
I don't know why. I thought she was killed in a parking lot.
I
don't know why.
Yeah, no, so there is a parking lot story to this. Yeah, she's killed. She's shot in that room. She's running down the hall. Oh. I've been shot, help me. And she's just bleeding profusely. And she gets to the lobby, and she actually tells them, like, this is who shot me, and this is the room number that she's in. And the ambulance is there in less than 2 minutes, but by the time they get there, she's just basically bled to death. Because the bullet that went through her lower right shoulder and then out here just severed an artery, and there was just really nothing.
And this woman who's a nurse.
Yeah, the woman who's a nurse did nothing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. And she gets to Corpus Christi Memorial Hospital at noon, not long after she's been shot. And the doctors worked on her for a long time, trying to revive her. And it's really interesting. So Selena's family are Jehovah's Witnesses. And so they do not believe in blood transfusions. Oh. So it was interesting. She did get blood transfusions at the hospital.
Oh, she did?
I believe it's because her husband gave permission, because he is not a Jehovah's Witness. And because I was thinking about it as I was doing this, I'm like, what if she had survived? Or what if the gunshot wound? Because people said if she had been shot a little bit higher or a little bit lower, it would not have been fatal. Yeah. So then she gets to the hospital, and they can revive her or keep her alive with blood transfusions. What would they have done? I don't know. Yeah. Chris Perez made the decision, I believe, to have her have blood transfusions. But honestly, what I read was that it was just a gaping wound. Yeah, it was just, there wasn't really anything that they could do. And she was declared at 105. So immediately, like, radio stations start announcing this, and everybody's just in total shock. And some people actually thought it was a pre-April Fool's Day joke because it was the day before April Fool's Day, and then it was like, no, she's really gone. She was really
Since
shot.
when do we do jokes on?
March 31st.
I
I
know.
know. It's like, I don't know.
Never heard of that.
But I think that was a way that people were like, okay, this isn't actually happening. This is a joke.
Yeah.
It's not funny,
Yeah.
and it's really tragic,
Yeah.
but this is the way to explain it away.
And you're like covering this,
Yeah.
but did they go after her like right away then? Like Yolanda?
Let's go to the
Okay.
next slide.
I want to see Yolanda taken down.
Okay. All right.
Oh, there he is.
So first of all, I forgot to mention this, and this is going to come up later when she's arrested and she goes on trial. So witnesses see Selena like running down the hall after she's been shot, and they see her walking after her, yelling, calling her a bitch.
Okay.
So it was clear to the people that saw this was like this was no accident. Like she actually shot her, and Yolanda was really upset with and angry with Selena.
So she was chasing after
Yeah, she was running down the hall after Selena, then goes back in her room,
Yeah.
grabs her stuff, gets in her pickup truck
Okay.
in the parking lot.
Okay. Parking lot.
Yeah, so she tries to get out of the parking lot, and she's probably frantic because she doesn't know what she doesn't know how. She's really concerned about what happened to Selena. She has no idea what her condition is. So as she's trying to get out of the parking lot, she backs into a couple other cars there, and then a police officer sees that, and then so they're already like, "You got to find this woman. Like she's at the Days Inn." So he stops her from leaving the parking lot, and then she engages in a 9-hour standoff with police. She's in her
her
pickup
car,
truck,
yeah.
with the gun, and she's like holding it to her head because she has threatened to commit suicide. That was what she said. So when she's asked about how this happened, she said she accidentally shot Selena when she was trying to commit suicide.
Okay.
So it's like she had the gun to her head, but she accidentally shot Selena in the
Yeah.
back, which I'm not a forensic person.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of
No.
sense.
No. Now, does Yolanda have like family or anything?
She's not married.
Okay.
She has 7, so she was one of 7 children, I believe. She has nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters. No mention of any other relationships in her life. I feel like from what I read about her, Selena was her life.
Yeah.
Selena was what she focused on. The minute she got to be the fan club president, that
Yeah,
was all
yeah.
she got. But she was not coming out of that truck. And so they had to get the SWAT team and FBI hostage negotiators to get her out of the truck. And then I read something that they finally get her out of the truck. And so the SWAT team, they swarm on her to get her like in handcuffs. And she's, oh my God, they're going to shoot me, they're going to shoot me. And it's, that's
Yeah.
exactly how Selena felt, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
So she gets arrested. She's arrested, she's arraigned. Initially, her bail was set at $100,000, and people were like, that is way too low. She
Yeah.
didn't have the money for it anyways, but
Yeah.
that's a slap in the face. Because people in that community are just, they cannot believe Selena is dead. They're
Yeah.
absolutely outraged. They can't believe that Yolanda Saldivar did this. They hate her with a passion. So the trial begins.
So
and
she's probably
actually-
better off in jail, protected.
That's exactly, we're going to talk about that
Yeah,
too,
okay.
because actually the case went really fast. So Selena killed on March 31st. Yolanda is arraigned on April 3rd, and the trial begins at the beginning of October of the same year. Sometimes you think about cases
Yeah,
that
drag
just
out.
something happens this year, their trial's in 18 months. This was like 5 months later, 6
Yeah.
months later. So there was no way for her to get, an unbiased jury where they were. So they moved the trial to Houston. The jury was made up of different ethnicities, 7 white Americans, 4 Hispanics, 1 African American. The trial begins on October 9th and lasts 3 weeks. The prosecution's case was that Yolanda killed Selena. It was he was going to do it. She was going to kill her because she was mad. She had been caught embezzling. The family had confronted her.
She purchased the gun.
She purchased the gun. She purchased it. She took it back. Then she repurchased it. Obviously, she wanted that gun.
Yeah.
And the defense's case was that the shooting was accidental because Yolanda was going to kill herself but accidentally shot someone. And they also brought up some things about Selena's father being very demanding of Selena, and Yolanda felt bad for her, but it's how's that your defense?
Yeah.
Why does that matter? Why does that mean you should shoot her?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So the jury did not deliberate for very long, just under 2.5 hours before returning a guilty verdict, and she received the maximum sentence possible, which was life in prison with the possibility of a parole hearing after 30 years. Which is why we're doing this, because she just had her parole hearing on March 27th of last month, and her parole was denied. So she will not be eligible for another parole hearing for 5 years. So it'll be 2030 before she's up for parole. And it's like you said, I actually think she's safer in jail. If she was released from prison on parole, I think somebody in the community would kill her.
Oh, wow.
They're that angry. So she's not getting out of prison anytime soon. So where are they now? As I said, Yolanda was granted a parole hearing on March 27th because that was part of her sentence. She would get a parole hearing after 30 years. They denied her request. She will not be parole eligible for another hearing until March 2030. She was interviewed. There is a documentary on Oxygen, which I did not watch, but she blames Selena for her own death.
Okay.
And that did not go over well with people
bet.
in that community.
Right.
Anybody.
She's still not taking responsibility.
Nope. I had to shoot. I think she said I had to shoot her because I was holding these secrets that Selena was trusting me with, and it was too much, and I had to kill her.
Okay.
It's like, okay, really? That doesn't seem like a reason for murder.
Yeah.
So this is part of the sentence or the statement that the family released after the parole board denied her request for parole. And it was jointly issued by Selena's family and Chris Perez, who over the years have had some differences about Selena's legacy and things like that. But on this, they were completely united. And they just want to remember Selena as the kind of person she was and the happiness that she brought to people through her music. So her brother A.B. and Chris Perez continue to make music. Sometimes they're in bands together and they produce music. Her sister doesn't play the drums anymore, and she works behind the scenes in music production. And then her father, Abraham, continues to work with like new musical acts and developing acts. And he and his wife just celebrated 60 years of marriage in 2023.
Nice.
So they're still together. And then Selena was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in November of 2017. So that's her husband with the flowers. That's her sister holding the star, and her brother with the hat that has Selena's birthday on it. And those are her parents to her sister's left. And they were all in attendance, and her sister accepted the award. And so one of the things that Selena was working on around the time of her death was an English language album. Now what's interesting is she did not grow up speaking Spanish. She spoke English.
Oh, okay.
So she really wanted to do an album in English. And the album was released in July of 1995. And it immediately went to, it was the number one album.
I remember
on the
that song on the
charts.
radio.
Yeah. And it really was like, it was a way to get like that kind of Tejano music like into the mainstream. And I just read that somebody said it was the most influential posthumously released album of all time.
Wow.
It just was that powerful and had so much impact on music today. So that's it. It was really like the reason I wanted to do, I was going to do like a 5-minute thing on this and then a whole other case, and I was like, well, it seems like there's enough to talk about with Selena and her background and her music and her popularity, and then the trial. And didn't talk a lot about the trial because it was pretty quick. And there wasn't
open and shut case.
Yeah, what are you going to say? She did it. She had the gun. She had the standoff. It was so.
It's strange to me that that gal Yolanda would go after Selena, who she loved so much. You think she would have gone after someone else in the family?
Right,
or
like the
something.
father. Or something. I think they all had a lot of concerns that she was
irrational.
She was, especially when she was going to lose her livelihood. She was not going to work at the boutiques anymore. She was not going to have access.
Maybe she couldn't stand Selena thinking that of her also.
Maybe. It could be. They were very close. Very close friendship.
Maybe there was something actually else motivating Yolanda. Maybe she did love that gal, Selena, so much
I think
that she might have been spurned.
Yeah, and it's one thing to be like, it's one thing to have Selena's family say these things about her, but to have Selena believe that she would really do this, and then like Selena confronts her and says, "You're done. I need these records. I want to get out of here." And that might have been it. That was like the breaking point for Yolanda. And she's like, "I'm just going to kill you."
How old was she when she died?
She was killed in 95, so she was 24. Yeah, 24. 30. Yeah, 24. Yeah. Yeah, she had just turned 24 in January that year.
Wow.
So I did have a picture of Yolanda. She's obviously looks a little different now. It's been 30 years. But I was like, I don't really want to focus on her. I want to focus on what the family's doing. Selena's memory. And so her star on the Walk of Fame is right outside the Columbia Records building.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I've never been to Hollywood. I don't know where the stars are, but it seemed kind of fitting. Yeah. Anybody have any questions? I don't have any of her albums, but they're all on YouTube. You can listen to them. They're probably on Spotify too, or Amazon.
If it was that, impressive.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard it. I think I heard probably some of her songs when
The
they
one
came
song,
out.
yeah.
Because they would have been on the Billboard. Yeah, you can listen to her band, her solo album. She is extremely talented. There's no doubt about it. And it's a terrible tragedy what happened to her, and her future was completely taken away from her and her fans. Her fans were just completely devastated.
Yeah.
Completely devastated. Because she was a real role model for young women who were growing up and
They saw her grow up too.
yeah, and people related to her because I think they saw her as somebody who went through some of the same things that she did, right? Her family really struggled, and she worked really hard, and she was just people saw her as just being a really authentic person, set people so much. The murder was upsetting.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
To take somebody so special to the community like that was really awful. By somebody from the community, who's really close to us, just shocking to people, and they couldn't believe it. And they hate Yolanda Saldivar.
Yeah,
Hate her with a passion. Yeah, so that's...
That'd be like losing Taylor Swift. At this
Exactly.
time, especially for the Hispanic community.
I was thinking about like how to describe Selena, and they described her at the time of being like, they would call her the Mexican Madonna,
Yeah.
right? But like for today's generation, she was absolutely the Taylor Swift of that music, and just had that kind of relationship with her fans, and yeah, and it was really interesting and sad to look into this one. 'Cause
Yeah.
This one was for me relatively current. It happened in the mid-90s.
Yeah, you moved up to the 90s.
I know. Usually I like to talk about things from the 70s, but I do remember when this happened, and I think I read that it was on the front page of the New York Times for days that week because it
Oh,
was
yeah.
just so tragic.
I mentioned to this nice person here, when I came in, I didn't know who she was. I thought she was in the show, The Murder in the Apartment.
Oh, that's Selena Gomez.
A different
Yeah,
singer.
yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
she was named after this Selena. I
Yeah,
don't know, so.
you never know.
it could have been. Anyway, I said, I noticed, I think it was last week, they had released a lot of her records.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wondered why.
Yeah.
But that's because of the...
Yeah, I started thinking that too because I'm like, I would click on a news story and then there would be something else about Selena. I was like, wow, I wonder why that's coming back in
And
the
that's
news.
the parole.
Yeah, it was that parole. Yeah, and she was shot on March 30th. It was 30 years ago, so it has that like significant milestone attached to it, and so yeah.
Yeah, you wonder what she would have accomplished.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty.
exactly.
She
She
was
was
so pretty.
really excited about releasing an English language album. That was really important to her. She didn't actually she recorded all the songs. She didn't get to see it released.
You just wish you could have gone back in time. Don't meet with this woman alone
Yeah, I know.
at the Days Inn.
Yeah, and then when Yolanda's in the truck, they did not tell her that Selena was dead because
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
she probably
yeah.
would have killed herself
Yeah.
then. And then she gets out, she's on like, couldn't believe, I just was like, had no idea that, she knew she shot her obviously, but was not thinking that it was fatal. And it was almost instantly fatal. I mean, she lost a lot of blood in a very short amount of time. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she went from, I was going to commit suicide with the gun, I didn't
Yeah.
intend to shoot
Yeah.
her, it was an accident or whatever,
Yeah.
to, at the end,
Yeah.
saying in jail that she deserved it or whatever.
Yeah, she blamed Selena for her own death because Selena was doing these things that her family, like, that wasn't actually happening. I think she spent 30 years in jail. She's given up her life, right? She'll never, this is my prediction, she will never get out of prison.
Especially
Die in
if she
jail.
doesn't admit her fault.
Yeah, they're never going to let her out. I just don't think she'll ever she'll never get out of prison, which I think, I'm okay with. I think that's fine.
And the sheriff's quote at the head of that news article
Yeah.
where it says,
Whoops.
how could she have possibly accidentally shot her when
Right.
she had the gun in her hand for 9.5 hours?
Yeah, and never shot
And it
herself.
never
And it
accidentally
never
Yeah, and never
slipped.
shot anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
at the top of this. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
right here. Oops. Where did we set this?
So did
Such-
the family recognize the kind of sick relationship that she had with?
I think they really liked Yolanda at first, especially because that quote up there.
Yeah.
I think there were other people around Selena who were like, maybe this relationship is a little too close, or maybe it's a little. Yolanda's a little bit obsessive, and
Or especially the husband?
yeah. I'm not sure the husband was a huge fan of Yolanda.
No,
But-
probably not.
Yeah, one other interesting thing, and I didn't include this in here, but I guess Yolanda really liked Fabergé eggs.
Oh,
Yeah, so
is that what she was buying with all the money?
she was buying like replica Fabergé eggs. Yeah, she had like 500 of them.
Oh.
Yeah, she had a lot of them.
That was a 90s thing.
It was a 90s thing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think
And
if
then,
I
and
told
then she bought Beanie Babies.
I'm saying I'm from the Beanie Babies fan club.
I know. Uh-oh.
I think if I said, did you have 500?
I had so many babies.
If I mentioned to my kids something about Fabergé eggs, I think they'd be like,
What are those?
Yeah. I was like, are they candy? What are they? Yeah, she was a huge fan of those, and so they were replicas. They weren't like original, and they showed a lot.
Yeah.
So did no one in the family know she was going to see Yolanda at that point?
No, they knew it. I think
they
that's,
did
yeah,
know.
so she called, so her dad called her, and the family kept pushing her. They're like, Selena, you need to go, and you just need to get these records, and you need to be done with her.
They were
Yeah.
telling her to go meet
Yeah.
with her.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought
they
she was
want this-
forbidden.
No, so Yolanda was forbidden from contacting
Yeah.
Selena, but
Yeah.
she was doing it anyways.
Yeah.
And they were trying to, Yolanda was trying to meet with her like 3 other times
Yeah.
before this incident where she was murdered. And she just had these bank records, and she just would not turn over the bank records to the family because they were going to implicate her in stealing all this money.
So I guess she was the only sole owner of the bank accounts?
She was like they changed that. Is that first meeting in March where they really were like, something is going on here. Whoops. Why do I keep doing this? I'll go back to that slide. Okay, so they get this information at the beginning of March of 1995. And so in some of these accounts, I want to say the fan club account, Yolanda was like the only person on that bank account. And they're like, that's over.
Yeah.
So she's now cut off from some of the money that she's stealing. She's making her living off Selena
Yeah.
too. That's what's interesting too, is like her family is relying on Selena, Yolanda is relying on Selena, just her person to make this money. And they start getting stuff from her, like some bank records, but not all of them, and it was just this one set of bank records. That's why she says to her dad, hey, I know I'm supposed to be at that recording station, I'll be there, I just need to do this one last
Yeah, but yeah.
thing. And that
And
was,
he knew that she was going?
I don't know if he knew, because he did not want them to see each other.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he thought she was going to get the bank records.
Yeah,
if not
right,
from
right,
Yolanda,
right.
Like, she's the only one who has them. And Yolanda was like, was supposed to bring stuff, wouldn't bring it, didn't have the right paperwork, so she was dragging this out, like making this. Okay,
Sure.
I'll get it next week. Okay, I'll get
Yeah,
it next
yeah,
week. Okay,
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Just meet me at the Days Inn on March 31st, and we'll clear all this up.
In my room.
In room 158. Yeah, she was definitely obsessive. There's no doubt about
Was
it.
she close in age to her?
She was older.
Was she?
Yeah. I think. Because, so Yolanda she graduated from high school like in the late 70s. She was in junior ROTC,
Oh.
like high school ROTC, so. It's all these fun facts that you learn when you're.
Was Ron Paul also like there for
Ron
her birth?
Paul had nothing to do with that. I started reading that. My husband who's back there, can attest to this. I'm like working on this presentation, and I walked into his office. I'm like, you're not going to believe who delivered Selena. He was like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, you got to guess who the OBGYN was when Selena was born. I have no one to guess.
Can you
I have
guess?
no names.
Dr. Phil.
And I was like, I don't know if I said, he ran for president. There's a guess. Right? And he did. And so I told him it was Ron Paul, and he was just like, that's crazy. Like, yeah.
A man of many
A
talents.
man of many talents, yeah.
So was Yolanda's behavior in prison, is she exemplary or?
She
started another fan club.
She, like a lot of people in prison, I think she's earned some associate's degrees. So I didn't get the sense that she's a problem in prison. So I'm sure she just was serving her time.
She's existing.
I think it really bothers people that I believe, got paid for this documentary that Oxygen produced,
Ugh.
which I don't know if Texas has any laws. Some states
Yeah,
have
yeah,
laws
yeah.
where I think their
Profit.
state has it. It's
Yeah.
like the Son of Sam law. You cannot profit off of telling your story when you murder somebody or
Yeah.
something. So I don't know if Texas has the same kind of law.
Might have also been prior to the law being
It could
instated.
be. Yeah.
What year did she start the fan club?
Like 1992.
So they really only had a relationship for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It really wasn't
Yeah,
that
and
long.
actually Yolanda did not like Selena as a musician, right? Because she liked this other person. She liked Shelley Lares. And Shelley and Selena were in the same sort of a Tejano music scene, and they were both like up for albums of the year and stuff like that. And Yolanda did not like Selena. And then she goes to see her in concert and was like, oh my gosh, I gotta start a fan club. And that's how it started. And her father was like, yes, that's a great idea. But it's always easy to look back and think,
I know.
oh my gosh, the parents should have
I know.
stop that from happening.
No.
Like maybe Abraham should have reached out to this other person's father, been like, what was it that made you say no to the fan club?
Yeah.
Because Abraham
Money
said,
got
and I'm not
in the way.
blaming him, but he was just like, he really wanted to get the band like out there and well known, and he thought that was a great way for
Yeah, I know.
fans to
Right.
have an interaction
But
with
it wasn't
Selena.
smart just to have her have control of the bank accounts.
Exactly. You look back on now, it's like, why would anybody do that?
Yeah.
Like, have 2 signers or 3 signers
Yeah.
or something.
Have a notary.
Yeah,
Have a notary.
have a notary, exactly.
Signing off on stuff.
So, yeah.
What were the parents' backgrounds? Maybe they knew nothing about business.
So
If
the
they
dad
were-
actually was in the record business. He was a
Prior to
musician.
that.
He was a musician.
Oh,
It's hard to.
I should have known
It was unclear what he was doing up until they started this Mexican restaurant. So they were in the business field.
Ah.
And then he was like Selena y los Dios. He was their producer. He produced their albums. He drove them around. He did all the publicity. So
Yeah.
maybe in some ways he was like, great, somebody wants to start a fan club? Great, you go do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm focusing on
overwhelmed.
all of these other
And maybe
things.
didn't realize it was going to become such a success.
Yeah. Although by that time she
Was
was
she?
pretty
Oh,
successful.
okay.
Yeah. She had been like Tejano Female Artist of the Year for 5 years.
Wow.
She was really well known in that community. Not so much like I did not know who she was when she was murdered. I didn't really know much about Tejano music, which is a mix of Mexican folk music and like accordions and it's fun to listen to and
Yeah.
like dance to and
Yeah.
stuff. And but yeah, so that's the tragic story of Selena.
And how would you ever think that somebody would actually shoot your daughter?
Yeah, I don't think they.
About it.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Okay, you have problems, but
Yeah, and I don't know if Selena mentioned to anybody else in her family that Yolanda had a gun. She had seen it in the middle of March, like March 12th or 13th. And I think maybe she did. I think she mentioned it and was like, oh, it's okay because Yolanda's going to take the gun back.
we do because we watch a lot of this on
Yeah,
I
TV.
know.
right.
Look at us.
No.
We're all paranoid.
Well, the 90s might have been a different time, too. I mean,
Yeah.
it was not, it was a little bit calmer, maybe.
You're saying the 90s were calmer?
Than now. I don't know. I
O.J.
just think.
Simpson, Menendez Brothers.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
else?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they were very trusting people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they trusted her.
Yeah.
And she trusted, Selena trusted Yolanda, and it was completely misplaced.
So she never had an agent,
She did not have an
or
agent. No.
isn't that what singers
No, her dad would
usually-
have been her agent for sure. He controlled like every aspect of the band, what kind of music they were going to play, and Selena kept pushing to do an English language album. That was really because that was her first language. She didn't speak
Yeah,
Spanish. She had
yeah.
to learn Spanish to sing these songs, and which was funny because she had gone into Mexico because there's that music in Mexico too, and Mexican Tejano fans look down on American Tejano musicians. And they were nervous about her going to Mexico and promoting her albums because her Spanish was not that great.
Yeah.
She just won them over because
Yeah.
she's very charming. And the one thing that they said was people really in Mexico really related to her because when you watch, and I do not watch a lot of Mexican telenovelas, which are very popular soap opera kind of things, but like all the women are like blonde hair and green eyes, which is, and so then Selena shows up and she's darker skin, dark hair, dark eyes. She looks like them
Yeah.
as opposed to these actresses
Yeah.
on these telenovelas. So they just immediately were like, okay, she seems like she's one of us. They really related to her. Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. Any
What a
other
waste.
thoughts?
Talent,
Yeah.
So it
beauty.
sounds like the family is still involved with Chris Perez, so have they warmed up to him?
They
and are
have.
accepting
yes.
of
Yes.
him?
Yes.
Is he remarried?
He did remarry, and he had a child with his wife, but they've divorced.
Okay.
I don't think her brother, I'm not sure if he ever got married. His sister did get, or her sister got married, and she has a child. Yeah, so I think like Chris Perez and the Quintanilla family's relationship goes it's up and
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
There were some hurt feelings against him because they eloped and he wasn't supposed to see her. And
Yeah.
And he may have owned the rights to her income. And
yeah, he was the one at the hospital who made the decisions about the blood transfusion too. And I'm not saying that would have any impact, but that is a big part of the Jehovah's Witness faith. That they do not believe in having blood transplants. Anyways, any other thoughts, questions, ideas?
Thank you.